Jessica at the Scott County Public Library in lovely Georgetown, Kentucky, with another edition of Bookends. And I'm here today with my good friend Michael. He is an expert in the genre, the thriller genre. And this is one that I'm just starting to get into, so I hope that he can get me all enthusiastic about continuing on with this genre.
Yes.
But before I talk to Michael about thrillers, I just want to remind everybody that this is July. This is our last month of summer reading. And I want to remind everybody to get your summer reading log at the Scott County Public Library. We've got an adult version, which this is right here. And we've got the children's version, which is available in the children's department, but you get the adult version at the circulation desk. And when you turn it in by the end of July, you get your free Oceans of Possibilities book bag. So don't miss out on your book bag. Come and get your summer reading log at the Scott County Public Library. So, thrillers, Mike. What is it that you love about this genre?
I just love the way it kind of scares you a little bit. It puts you in situations that you're never really going to be in, hopefully, but you get to live through them as well, and no harm is done. So it doesn't get any better than that. I've always felt that if there was a serial killer in the book, or a maniac trying to destroy New York City, or a psychopath holding people hostage, that's the kind of book I like. It's really exciting for me. So I brought a few things here today I'd like to show you. These are books that I have read in the past year and have really enjoyed here at Scott County Public Library. The first one is called Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. It's a book that went through several people here at the library, and we all absolutely loved it. The basic premise of the book is there are three girls, three friends, teenagers, young ladies. After a night out partying, one of them disappears. And come to find out, one of the other girls' boyfriend happens to be a serial killer. So they're trying to figure out, did Calvin, the serial killer, kill Anna Wong, the girl who disappeared, or did someone else? And so Kaiser, one of the three girls, goes to a lot of trouble to try to find out what really happened to Anna Wong that night. And of course, as she gets closer to the killer gets closer to her. It's Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. The next one is actually a series of books that involves the protagonist, Ryder Creed. He's a really interesting young man who loves animals. Here at Scott County Public Library, we are all very fond of our animals. So he takes in rescue dogs and trains them to be forensic dogs, like a cadaver dog or a drug dog or a dog that helps rescue people after a tragedy, that type of thing. But these are all really interesting. I'll go through the plots very quickly with you to kind of see what they're about. Silent Creed by Alex Cava, they're all by Alex Cava, involves a devastating mudslide in North Carolina. This weird mudslide covers this science lab, this secret lab that the government is running. And when they get in there to find out what happened, they find that the scientist has actually been shot in the back of the head and was dead before the mudslide. So Alex and his dogs try to find out what happened to this scientist and what is really going on in this plot. The second one is called Breaking Creed, also by Alex Cava. This is one where Ryder and his dogs are trying to stem the flow of drugs in the United States, and he's getting quite good at it. In fact, getting a lot of national notoriety for their ability to stop these drugs that are being pouring in the United States. But one time, instead of drugs, they actually find humans that are being smuggled in the United States. So the cartel doesn't like the fact that he is disrupting their flow and their money trail, so they come after him with a vengeance. Ryder and his people and his dogs, everyone around him, finds themselves on a hit list by this cartel from Mexico. So again, a really interesting storyline. This one was perhaps my favorite. It's called Hidden Creed, also by Alex Cava. Ryder Creed's place is right next to a big forest, this national forest. And one of his little dogs on a walk finds a body, and then they find another body, and another body, and another body. And they realize that the forest next door is a dumping ground for a serial killer. Well, the serial killer is actually watching them the whole time and finds out that that he knows about the kills and is going to bring a bunch of information out about the serial killer. So at that point, the killer comes after Ryder and his dogs and his sister and everyone else who lives there at the compound. So those are the Ryder Creed series by Alex Cava. They won't let you down. They're quite interesting. This one is perhaps my favorite. It's totally different. It's called Black Friday by William W. Johnston. In this case, there's the American Way Mall, one of these big malls that are so typical in the United States, and suddenly machine gun fire breaks out. And there are dead and dying everywhere in this mall. So this one man, he's an Iraq veteran named Toby Lanning. He goes in and tries to basically save himself and the hostages that are all hiding, and the people that are hiding with him in the back of one of these stores, and tries to keep this wild, crazy, terrorist, fanatical group from killing everyone in the mall. But what I really love about it is he kind of grabs a ragtag group of people to help him. He's got a teacher, he's got a thug, he's got a priest, he's got another guy in a wheelchair, he's got all these kind of unusual people. The teen security guard, for example, you've seen those in the malls, and how effective they can be. But anyway, he takes these 5 or 6 people and they decide that the best defense is a good offense. So they go through the mall trying to save everyone from these terrorists. It's a great read from front cover to back cover. I read it like in a day because I just couldn't put it down to find out what happened to these people in Black Friday by William Johnston. And the last one I have for you today is one that I just finished a couple of days ago called The Butcher. Isn't that a scary name? The Butcher. But anyway, there's the Beaconville Butcher that's out in Seattle, and he's killing these women and cutting off their left hand. Isn't that gross? So it's a scary premise. And then, but they killed the Beaconville Butcher, so everything's great because the serial killer is dead. Well, Matt, this one guy, he's actually the chief of police's grandson, moves into his grandfather's house, because the grandfather's going into an old age home. So when he goes to this house and moves into his grandfather's house, he finds this crate in the backyard where he's building a new hot tub, and guess what he finds in jars? A bunch of left hands. Uh-oh. So he starts wondering, is the Beaconville Butcher really dead? And what tie does he have to my grandfather, the chief of police? It's a really neat book with some great plot twists. You really enjoy it. And that is The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier also.
Wow.
Those are great ones, Jess. You won't be bored with any of them.
No, you're not. You're never bored reading a thriller. And these are among the first thrillers that I've actually read. So it's kind of like riding a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Because you've got that anticipation. You're going up, and then all of a sudden your stomach just drops because something horrifying happens.
Yes, indeed.
This was my first book that I read that's a thriller. It's called Sea Storm by Andrew Mayne. And it kind of goes along with our Oceans of Possibilities theme because it's about an underwater investigative unit. And the main character is a woman named Sloane McPherson, and she and the rest of the underwater investigative unit are investigating a mysterious set of explosions on a cruise ship. And they have to do a lot of diving and underwater work, so that involves a lot of dangerous kind of confrontations with the evil bad guys.
Sounds good.
And at first it seems to be the work of just one eco-terrorist, but the more they dive into the plot, it's not adding up to that, and it seems like much more is going on with certain evidence being ignored by the authorities, and the authorities seem to have like a curious lack of interest in certain details. So they figure that there's a lot more going on, and they're in danger the whole way through. So you will love it. It's called Sea Storm by Andrew Mayne.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's a really good one. My next one is When Ghosts Come Home by Wiley Cash. And this is about a sheriff in a small town in North Carolina, Sheriff Winston Barnes. He and his wife hear what they think is a plane crash at the local airport in the middle of the night. So because he's the sheriff, he immediately goes to investigate. And what he finds is an empty cargo plane that is kind of, it's actually too big to land at that airport, but it is kind of made a landing, but part of it's been damaged. But it's empty. It looks like somebody has pulled up and unloaded a bunch of stuff.
Right.
But there's also a dead body there. This man, he was a local black man, has been shot and left for dead on the runway. So Winston's rival in the upcoming sheriff election has a long history of involvement in racist activities, even back in his high school days. So that rival to the sheriff's position is accusing the murdered man of being involved in this somehow being drugs, like they're running drugs in this cargo plane. So Sheriff Barnes has to figure out the truth. Plus he has to keep down the violence in his local community. So the FBI want to take over the case, and Winston's sure he's going to lose the upcoming election to his racist rival. And his racist rival has begun intimidating local black residents. So it's just a bad situation, and the murdered man has left behind a wife and a 5-month-old baby. So it's very sad. And Winston's own adult daughter has come home after losing her own baby at birth.
Right.
So he's got a lot going on in his home life as well. So he needs to find out, are locals running drugs? If so, who are they? And who murdered the man on the runway?
Right.
And can he solve this all before the election? Believe me, there's a lot going on in this book, and it's scary, and I highly recommend it. When Ghosts Come Home by Wiley Cash. Okay, then we've got Marked Man by Archer Mayer. This is a kind of about a guy who starts out dead. He was a millionaire, or a very, very, very wealthy guy, and he's a body, because he's died supposedly of natural causes, but his body has been donated to medical science, and one of the medical students is dissecting him as a cadaver and finds something unusual about it. So his body is taken back to the medical examiner's office, and they discover that this was a suspicious death. So investigators are called in, and Joe Gunther and his Vermont Bureau of Investigation are called in to examine or investigate the dead man, find out what happened to him, and discover that nothing about his life is what it seemed at all. And the death was obvious. It was a murder, and so they have to untangle the web of duplicity and greed and obsession.
Yes,
and
indeed.
it just keeps going on and on and on. So definitely read that one, Marked Man by Archer Mayer. Then we've got a really super scary one. Super, super scary one. It's called The Runaway by Nick Petrie. And it's about a man named Peter Ash he's driving through northern Nebraska, kind of out in the boondocks, and he discovers a young pregnant woman with her car broken down, and so he offers to give her a ride. But he doesn't realize that she's on the run from her ex-cop husband, who is after her. And so they're being chased by this guy with murderous intent. And because he's a former policeman, he pretty much knows how to track people and chase them, and because the woman has seen something that she was never intended to see. So anyway, Peter Ash has to keep her safe throughout this whole book, and very, very scary, very scary. The Runaway by Nick Petrie. So that's about it for this month's edition of Bookends. Super scary stuff, thrillers, and you can get them all at the Scott County Public Library.
Come and see us.
Yeah. See you next time.